The following stream contains mature content and subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised. Chicago. Ask someone the city, and they will have trouble coming up with a concise description. When people think of New York City, they think of skyscrapers, subways, and muggers. When they think of Los Angeles, they think of sun, smog, and traffic. When they think of Detroit, they think of cars, factories, and decay. But for those of us that know, there's only one thing we think of when someone mentions Chicago: vampires. And tonight, we tell their story. I bet there's sound now. You couldn't hear me. I guess my silence to death was a bit much tonight. Well, that's what happens when you get to a certain age, everybody. Once you hit that age, you forget to control the benefits of the blood. As I was saying, welcome everyone to your boy Twitch. You're here live in my lair tonight. Sorry I haven't been around. I've been a bit busy. It's rather unfortunate, actually. I didn't realize the commitment I was making when I agreed to that woman's request. But, as always, I will make sure there is time for the rest of you, at least to give a bit of a discussion here. It's been a busy few months, and though, as I said, I haven't been able to speak with you, it doesn't mean I haven't been paying attention. You see, when we last spoke, a storm had swept across the city. A storm of unnatural origin, a storm caused by the last fitful cry of a lake spirit. And it was on this fateful night that there was four troublemakers. 4, or was it 5? My memory is gone. There were some troublemakers. Students of Cratius. Quite old kindred. And you see, during their little troublemaking, they were sentenced to his school. And apparently, they were given one last task. And in this task, they failed. Well, they succeeded in the task, but they failed to survive, which is rather amusing. And that is actually where we're going to open up with, because it seems once Jackie returned from Europe during this storm where she was, I believe she was hiding out, of course, but if you ask her, she had business overseas with her, well, with Mithras, you might say. I say she was hiding out. And when she returned from hiding out, she found that these students of Cratius had died because one of them was a Nosferatu that Winnetka was quite interested in finding out about. Now, that really wasn't the important part of the visit. The important part of the visit was it seems good old Winnetka is no longer really obsessed with his lake spirit or under its influence. Winnetka has shifted to a general mode, and while this group has not been checking in with him lately, you have to wonder what he's been up to. But a more important matter, though I don't believe Jackie understands the importance of it at this point, is there was a brand new Nosferatu in the city who was there meeting with Winnetka. He had been sent on a mission from the Nosferatu broods of Europe to warn Winnetka of a new group who have been making moves, not only in Europe, but also across America. These are followers of an odd, twisted line of Nosferatu. Now, I get what you're saying. I get it. Many of you, from what you've heard of me say of Nosferatu, believe they're twisted already. They are not. They may look the beast, but you'll find many of them are much more in touch with their humanity than those who look fair. You know, as they say, those who look fair are often foul, and those who look foul are often fair. But these particular Nosferatu, their new servants, believe if they wipe out all of the Nosferatu, they will regain their beauty back, because they were once a beautiful group. These group were called the Niktuktu, and these are the group that, well, this new Nosferatu was sent to warn Winnetka about. Now, while Jackie hasn't run into him yet, I'm sure that that's only a temporary thing, because he was strangely fascinated with her. And that tells you, well, fate pulls at strings. And in this case, that string is going to lead to them meeting. What else did we open with? Well, we had the unfinished Tessa business, along with, of course, Honor Mercer, child of Decker. It seems Isabella gathered information from one Anastasia, who is the cat lady of Milwaukee, of all things. But not only is she this cat lady, this Nosferatu, she is actually one of the judges, one of those that Mark Decker trusts to pronounce punishment for kindred. But this particular Nosferatu actually gave Isabella the information on where Tessa would be held, which turned out to be the Null Zone and the steam tunnels located underneath. We're going to touch on the Null Zone a bit more. But she was put in contact with Anastasia by one Keisha Phelps, a member of the ministry. Not a fan from Jackie, you see. Jackie does not seem to like the ministry very much. I personally, they're snakes, but I've found that all of our kind are snakes. Every single one of us in our own way. At a minimum, we're all cold-blooded. I kind of like that joke. I'll have to remember it. So what else did we come across? Well, let's see. Roscoe finally got around to his research on those daggers they took from Ben, but not Ben, the demon that held Ben's form. And he found out these daggers were actually forged by these demons, these fallen angels. Now, I know you still don't believe me that this is a thing, but let me assure you, the angels were real. They did fall. And most of them are not friends to humanity. These daggers were created with a purpose, a very singular purpose, a purpose to slay the first murderer, Cain, and those of his descendants. Now, personally, I would not want them daggers anywhere near me. Being a descendant of Cain, let's just say I don't consider that a wise decision. But nonetheless, they have them, and they keep them. It's funny about these particular daggers. The one who created them, I actually met once. I know you find it hard to believe. How could I have been that old when they were created before time? But you see, the one who created them made a brief time in our time frame, our timeline, you might even say, in the myriad of possibilities of reality. He was briefly here with us. That would have been 23 years ago, 1999. I don't want to go into too much details with that, as it's not our particular timeline. But I'm sure at another point we will come back to it, another day, in another year, or perhaps we have already talked about it, we don't know it. Let's see. The coterie decided it was finally time to not only deal with Felicity, but to rescue Tessa. And to do so, they planned a two-pronged assault. You see, to give themselves some cover, Jackie would deal with Felicity in Milwaukee at the same time as the rest of the coterie would move to rescue Tessa. Actually, I find those kind of plans work quite well. Always keeps people guessing when they're expecting you to always work as a group, but you split the party. I don't know where that reference of split the party comes from. I heard it one night in a comic book shop where people were playing some sort of game with dice. They made a point of never splitting the party, but I've found it's quite useful from time to time to split up. But back to this particular subject, you see, Jackie went to this casino where Jenny had arranged that Felicity had won a contest. She has a gambling problem, you see. So Jackie went there to mentally break Felicity. And she did so rather in a cunning way, because she showed her pictures of, well, what happened to her house, of her burnt down house when her family was killed, and implied that she knew exactly how it actually happened, which was not at the hands of a kindred, but at the hand of, well, it's believed possibly Felicity herself is the one who killed her family to retaliate. You see, for Felicity had revealed in that same meeting that Dr. Loomis had done something to her father that she did not like. It turned him into a monster, so she burned the house down to do it. Which, I will be fair, given what that monster, which I am afraid to say was of the blood of my clan, those who are called the Malkavians, the Mad, though I think that is not a accurate description of us. It was one of my fellow clanmates who had turned her father into a monster. I'm not going to go into details of what kind of monster, but let's just say the deprivations of what those who can edit memories and emotions can turn someone into is quite horrifying. But while Felicity was breaking her down, or Jackie was breaking Felicity down, the rest of the coterie moved into the Null Zone. Now, the Null Zone is an interesting place. All the kindred seem to think it is a place with no magic, where blood magic and hermetic magic and the awakened spheres of magic don't work. But as Roscoe found out, that's not quite the case. It is actually a place of immense magic, too much magic. There is so much magic flooding that particular area that everything acts strangely. And, well, I guess more than Roscoe knows this, because Jenny found something about that place, called to the feral part of her beast, Clan Gangrel. She manifested her powers unwillingly. Her beast was stronger, more in control, closer to the surface than she had ever experienced. Now, I happen to know a little bit about that. You see, a brief history of the Null Zone, very brief, of course. It seems it was created by a werewolf who stole the pack totems from two different packs, taking a totem from Coyote and a totem from Eagle. He waged a war against some vampires. And in the end, in a final battle, he was losing, so he decided he would unleash both totems' full power and the spirits of the earth to destroy the kindred. And he did. He destroyed all of them, but in the process damaged the earth, damaged the spirit world in that area, and caused his own death in the process as well. And his dying act, last bit of energy he had, was to hide these two totems in the Null Zone. So now you have an area with two stolen totems the werewolves fight over. And of course, magic out of control because of what he had done. Now this is the key point, you see, because by keeping Tessa there, Decker was treading on sacred ground of the werewolves. And they don't exactly like what they call a leech on their sacred ground. So while the coterie moved in to rescue Tessa, they also found there was a pack after them. Now, they managed to avoid the werewolves. Akawa, a Bruja, one of the Anubis, one of Decker's fighting force, distracted them so that the coterie could escape. But one of the key things they also found that is unique about this Null Zone is there is a shrine to Joan of Arc. Now, the funny thing about this shrine is it doesn't originate from here. It was moved here by a mage, but it also happens to be full and filled to the brim with what my kind would call true faith. It has the faith of belief attached to it. And it is this true faith that caused great pain to Nicholas and Isabella as they fled this place. It was also as they come out of it that Ginny got her first fight with a werewolf. You see, one was charging them. And the werewolf made a fatal mistake. You see, if you're going to attack kindred, you should do so in close quarters, not crossing an open field where they have more time to shoot at you with silver. For this guy took a number of silver bullets, and in his maddened rage, he never noticed Jenny, who was crouching hidden in the shadows, using the power of her blood to hide herself. And she caught him unawares and proceeded to behead this werewolf. Quite impressive, actually. Not many of our kind do this. And they managed to rescue Tessa. And at the same time, Jackie, as she finished up her business with Felicity, learned that she believed Felicity could be compromised. She could be turned to the kindred way rather than Second Inquisition. And I know many of my kind say that is a dangerous tactic. Last time that was attempted, let's just say, Vienna was never the same. In this case, it seems she was closer and a little shrewder about how she went about it. We will touch back on Felicity. You see, for her story is not done. She's going to come up later as we discuss the events of the last few months. I try to be chronological about it, of course. That way you get an understanding of the flow of time, because for most of us, time is a linear thing, though not always true for some others. Let's see. After the storm we had left you with, Nicholas had contacted Zal, but she was a prisoner of some kind. He found her again. The young one, Zal, with the amnesia. He found her playing, as she often does, outside of a cemetery with her guitar. Now, here's the odd part about it. As he was walking to see her, he was approached by a man he didn't know, one Alessandro Giovanni. The Giovannis are a familiar clan for me. Having been embraced when I was embraced. Yes, embraced means made a kindred. Having been turned, you might say, into a vampire when I knew a lot of Giovanni, being the time in Europe and all. It seems the Giovanni are a clan of, they're bankers, gangsters, criminals, worshippers of death. And this particular Giovanni met with Nicholas and told him to stay away from Zal. Now, it was quite interesting. You see, this Giovanni was threatening without being threatening. He was hostile without showing dangerousness. He got the point across that whether he does it himself, digging into Zal's background and Zal's situation is very dangerous, and in the end could cause complications for Nicholas. It's also from this same meeting that Izzy, Nicholas's dead sister that lives in that necklace he wears, mentioned they were being watched by one of her kind, one of the dead, one of the wraiths. I actually happen to have quite an experience with wraiths. I spent a bit of time talking about them back a few years ago in Richmond. You see, there's a group of them called the Memni. They can do amazing things with memories. Things that, well, even my kind would be jealous to see. I don't know what their involvement is with this young child, Zal. But Alessandro Giovanni was very emphatic to stay away from her. Let's see. Jackie gets to meet up with Keisha from, of course, Isabella. And if Jackie learns how dangerous this particular Setite is, you see, Luke, for all of his bluster, is not nearly the threat that he could be. Yet, when you go for Keisha, she is more subtle, more charming, more likable, which makes her more dangerous. She has already pretty much taken over Indianapolis. She runs this church of Set there, and that has become a theocracy, a church of Set stronghold. Jackie, well, the last she discussed it, had plans to destroy Keisha. We shall see if her plans stick and if they still hold. Because as these kindred often show, their plans change. Quite a bit, actually. Well, let's see. What else shall we talk about here? Of course, I guess a real popular subject with people has seemed to be Roscoe and his little mage friend Samantha, the little redhead. You'll be happy to know that Roscoe finally went on a date with Samantha. He got that date that was so needed. I'm not sure I would say the date turned out well. You see, because while he was on this date with Samantha, Sun Chi showed up. And it seems Samantha has a jealous side. Things came to a heated discussion and almost resulted in a, shall we put it, an explosive argument, but not quite. She managed to keep her control. And Sun Chi departed the place. But you saw the other side of Samantha, not the sweet girl that seems to have a thing for Roscoe, but the more spiteful side, the threatening side, and a true glimpse of the power this young one has. You see, for youngness has a problem. You can be full of the youth and the vigor of it all and have quite a bit of power, but it takes time and age to really temper the usage of it, to learn when to do things. You see, it's a common trait among the kind, or you humans. You often think, can I do something, but not should I do something. Samantha has not learned the should I portion yet. I'm sure, well, I happen to know this is going to come up shortly again, you see. There's an important part of her on this one. Let's see. How shall we go on? Well, Isabella found Braden outside of her wine pub, her brewery, brew pub, really. And Braden expected to die, expected her to kill him, expected Lamar to be one to do it with her. It was a very unproductive conversation, aside for the fact that he told Isabella that he would wait for the two of them to come see him, which is an interesting concept. If you think someone is out to kill you, why would you invite them to visit you? Isn't that it? As Cleopatra would say, isn't that inviting the asp to your bosom? Well, they did come meet with him, but we will get to that shortly. You see, this is about the same time that Jenny took a field trip. Good old Jenny. Her fascination with Bobby finally reached its breaking point, its boiling point. You're acting juvenile. I did not say boobs. I said bosom. There is a difference. Come now. We're being at least relatively civil and genteel, at least when I am in this mask. If we wish to talk about boobs and tatas and the like, you'll have to find me when I'm on the street corner, wrapped in my blankets, in my box. But before I was distracted, let's go back. You see, Jenny's field trip was to Bobby Weatherbottom's house. Very odd house with a white picket fence, not what you would expect from, not what you'd expect from a kindred. Certainly not a Ventru. Ventru don't strike me as a white picket fence, let's have a house kind of person. But that is the way it is. And while searching around this house, she discovered Bobby Weatherbottom's house, or his wife in the house. You see, his wife was hooked to life support machines. And though Jenny never got to figure out exactly what's going on, I will let you know, his wife is in a chemically induced coma, induced by him. Jenny, being the sneaky predator she is, at any point she could have struck Bobby down as he came home. But she chose instead to reveal herself to him and toy with her prey. Which, that is Jenny's way, I think. She is a playful hunter until she decides it is time to strike. She put him in a position where he would meet her in Elysia, you see. And that's good, because Elysia, he would feel safe, though we will find it's not nearly as safe as he thought. Let's see. Well, after meeting with Tracy about Sun-Chi, Roscoe got to meet one Victor. It's odd, even I don't know his last name. Victor is a problem in some ways. You see, he's a very young kindred, but his power is much greater than his age would suggest. He was working for the federal government, the CIA, as a matter of fact. He was one of the ones they used to do what's called wet work. I'm pretty sure most of you understand the concept of wet work. It is what the CIA call their black ops assassination groups. But you see, apparently, he outlived his usefulness to the CIA, so they attempted to, subjugate him to his own form of wet work. And they failed. And then he was embraced. So you have a trained killer, trained at espionage, assassination, coups, revolutions, making accidents appear, who became a Tremere and was taught domination and auspex and the blood magic that they have, and allowed to hone his craft, combining the worst of both groups. He has become a troubleshooter and liquidator for Clan Tremere, and now he's here looking for Sun-Chi. And though Victor did not get the information directly from Roscoe, Roscoe's answers told Victor a lot. Victor knows that Roscoe does not agree with things. And Victor casually threatened Roscoe about it. We'll come back to him because it's not the last time you'll hear from Victor. You will hear from him some more. Let's see. We had a big event. A real big event, actually. Jackie had her charity event. It was actually a very nice event. I was there, though none of them knew me. It's the beauty of being who I am. I'm sure you've seen my face, and while my face is always mine, you would still have trouble picking me out of a crowd for when I choose to be unobtrusive. I am. But it was at this charity event where Jackie played the consummate host. She dealt with Primogen, both Annabelle, Cedric Calhoun. Sinshaw was there, Alan Sovereign. Even the prince made an appearance, though the one the prince brought with him, poor Sierra, former member of the delegation of Clan Lasombra to join the Camarilla, and now broken husk of a woman. What Lucinda did to her was horrible. And I know this because I was there. I saw the breaking of it, and even my rather unethical self. I found what was done was repugnant. I had to switch to a mask that could deal with it rather than be who I was at the time. But Sierra was brought there as a message to somebody who was present that night. Now, I have my suspicions. The coterie has theirs. Do they match up? I guess only time will tell. But this broken, scared husk of a Lasombra, her presence upset Jackie in many ways because she does not like to see an abused woman used as a flex like that. And I don't blame her. But Jackson has and always will be a gangster and a thug. And his mindset will always be from that. So that is how he handles these situations. At this charity event, there was, a group of protesters, which was quite amusing. Actually, they were there protesting that Jackie is a purveyor of smut and pornography because they feel burlesque is both of those. And I have news for them, it's not. But their protest attracted the attention of not only Jackie and her lieutenant friend, but also Lamar. And Lamar went out to verbally spar with them. And while I use the word verbally spar as a civilized method, let's be frank, what Lamar was doing was verbally threatening these individuals. And the only reason I say verbally threatening is because Jackie, being aware of Lamar, intervened before Lamar could escalate it to turn it into, what would be in many ways a glorious bloodbath. Because Lamar was very close to, I believe he uses the term, introducing someone to Camp Wish a Motherfucker Would. He is from Clan I'll Fuck You Up after all. Jackie pulled Lamar away politely, but firmly, to get him back under control so that the police could handle the protesters. And I was watching the police during this event. These protesters spent a lot of time meekly resisting, or at least by how many times the police said, stop resisting to these protesters. You see, for this is a bad world, a dark world, and there's very little mercy from anyone. Returning to this charity event with Lamar in tow, Jackie, of course, ran into Kathy and Nero and found that Nero actually apologized for his actions and the way he behaved. All because Kathy forced him to, which raises an interesting question. Is Nero bound? Is Nero his own person? Or is he actually under the sway of Kathy now? She is, after all, Toreador, as is he, but he was out of it for a while she has always been herself. Finally, at this charity event, they had a visitor, a very old visitor, one that normally lives in Resurrection Cemetery, one that even I avoid, for she makes me seem as young as Well, that douchebag Killian. She is older than old. She made an appearance at their charity event, intrigued by Nicholas and the Clan of Death. And though she did not cause any problems, Jackie was still not pleased, and after finally tracing down and looking for her enough, they spoke with a mouthpiece of hers as she departed and found that she really was wondering what happened with the spirit in the lake, her ally. Let's see. Where shall we go with this? I'm sure you remember Nick. Not Nicholas, but Nick, the Nosferatu. Nick. Seems to have a thing for Lamar, and now he gets to call Lamar boss. You see, Lamar has entered into a business arrangement with Nick. And this business arrangement, well, I dare say will be profitable for both of them. I think Nick needs an employer that won't casually throw away his broods, and Lamar needs the assistance of one such as a Nosferatu that is not tied to Winnetka or the general Nos as a whole in the city. While Nick was doing this, Nicholas and Roscoe went to Resurrection Cemetery, where they met with the old one, Nerissa. And Nicholas found out that the Giovanni were being hunted by something because she was looking for one. And she has a job for him that she will contact him soon about. And this job will entail him getting something from the spirit world. Told you she is old and she is dangerous. Objects that are in the spirit world should stay there. They should not be brought to our side. They should not be moved across the shroud. But in her case, she claims the item came from our world and was put there in hiding. Now, my question would be, was it put there to hide it, or was it put there to keep it from her? But irrespective of that, we don't know the details of her yet. Her and Roscoe were allowed to live, or Nicholas and Roscoe were allowed to live, were allowed to escape. And Nicholas, being smart, immediately called Jackie afterwards to let Jackie know where they had been. You see, because Jackie does not like people who go to Resurrection Cemetery too often because that old one is too dangerous, too much of a problem. But you see, it was also this time that Jackie went and spoke with a contact of hers, one Dawn Akata. Now, Dawn is interesting. She is a member of Clan Malkavian. She is a daughter of Malkav. But unlike some who take a role of seer, she takes a very odd role. She has focused the blood, the curse as they call it, into forging herself into almost a living computer. I don't see the need of that, you see, because these computers are relatively new compared to me, and I don't understand why you would want to be one. But in her case, she really did forge herself into a computer. And it was during this discussion that Jackie found out just who is protecting one Nero. He is protected by none other than Ian Carfax himself. Justicar Ian Carfax. Justicar of Clan Tremere. Now that raises a question. Why would a Tremere Justicar protect a Toreador? A Toreador who for a long time was little more than a walking zombie, a shell, a husk. And even now that he's gotten his ability to hear his beast back, is still far from humanity's grasp. Why would Nero protect one as that? She also found out more details on Mr. Weatherbottom, Mr. Bobby, that Dawn is blackmailing him with the knowledge of his wife, forcing him to spy on the Anarchs for her, particularly to be in a coterie with one Joseph Kerr. I don't know why every time I say his name I think Snack, But for some reason, I think snack when I say Joseph Kerr. But when Joseph Kerr and the important part of this assignment, this mission to watch one Duncan McTavish. You see, Dawn is upset that Duncan shot an Archon of the Camarilla in the face. Personally, I say don't take it. Don't hold it against him. If I got mad at someone every time they shot me or had done something to me, I would be as caught up as, well, Menelaus, Sybil, Helena. Even Victor, who's caught up in his private little wars. If I held grudges, I would be like them. But any way you look at it, Mr. Weatherbottom is in a very bad spot. He's held by an Archon on one side, a Justicar, who, Dawn is not there without her actions in this case through her Justicar. And he's caught by, well, now Miss Jenny. You see Jenny in this meeting in Elysia. Explain to him that she knows about his wife and she could kill his wife at any point. She could embrace his wife. She could ghoul his wife, or she could tell everyone about his wife. Any way you look at it, Bobby is in deep shit. So Jenny pulled off what I will say is a masterstroke. Really, she got a life boon out of Mr. Bobby Weatherbottom. He is now hers. In many ways, body and soul. So poor Bobby is caught between a Malkavian Justicar who has no emotion, no feeling, no compunctions, no ethics, no morals. And Jenny, a predator who plays with her prey, who toys with her targets and uses them for her own ambition. I don't think it's going to go well for Bobby. Where shall we go to next? I mean, I could offhandedly say Nicholas was attacked in his haven by an incompetent assassin. I know. You would think what assassins would operate against one of our kind. And in this case, it was done during the daylight when our kind sleep. Thankfully, his ghost of a sister woke him up, and he managed to infect this attacker with several horrible plagues. And though Nicholas was wounded, he was not wounded bad enough that he couldn't come out and prevail. And enlisting the aid of Roscoe, the two of them tracked this assassin back to a medical building that burned down. It's a medical building that a wassailed kindred visited. One of the first things that Nicholas and Isabella assisted the coterie with, actually. A building that is linked back to a subsidiary of Pentex. Now, I know we have not talked too much about Pentex, and I am not dumb enough to talk in depth about them even now. Let's just say, if you sum up all the bad things you think about corporations when it comes to poisoning the earth, subjugating mankind, slave wages, slave labor, and otherwise unethical and, frankly, detrimental to humanity's and the world's survival, you can wrap that all up in Pentex, and it's still not even close to the depths of what this company does. Apparently, this assassin came from there. Which leads to the question of, well, why would they send him after just one kindred? Why hasn't assassins come for the rest of them if it had to do with their attack on that building? Or maybe does it have to do with something else? Let's see. We talked about Braden a bit. You see, Isabella and Lamar went with Braden, and Braden agreed he would bring the journals. Now, I'm glad that he did, because these journals are quite interesting. They show the depths of the fragmentation of Braden's mind. It seems someone has systematically and repeatedly, over many decades, rewritten Braden's memories, deleted parts without replacing them, added parts, changed parts. And I don't think most kindred or humans understand just how bad it is when you fragment a mind and you put that many Swiss cheese holes in it and you make someone question repeatedly what is real, what is not, which memories are true, which did not happen, which things were placed there. It tends to damage you and eventually cause major psychosis. In Braden's case, he has become suicidal and he doesn't realize what he does. But there was important info in these journals because these journals described a memory of a picture in New York, a picture that he swears was Isabella meeting with Amelia de Carlo, which is Braden's sire. Now, this particular picture was interesting because it turned out it was not Isabella, but it was actually Nicholas's sister, Izzy. Why Alessandra was meeting with Izzy, and how does this fate all line up? I have to say, the universe is an interesting place. It is funny how many threads of unrelated things somehow weave themselves together and loop back. What were the odds that Braden would pick Isabella to see, and Isabella would look like his sister, and Braden's sire was, of course, the one who got Izzy sick, caused her death. And this same individual would have been in D.C. at a time Jackie was there. And he has spent so much time up and down the coast. These interweave threads of fate, all linked together. It's all tied to this coterie in some way. I wonder, is there any ties? Well, we know to Lamar there's a tie because Tally is suspected to be behind this. But what we haven't found yet, we have a tie with Jackie in some ways, located in the same locations. Roscoe with that one, Lamar through Tally, Isabella through a sire, Nicholas through his sister. We haven't seen a tie in this story part of Braden with Jenny. Are they tied together somehow and they don't know it yet? I guess we'll have to see. Let's see. I'm going to bring up an interesting point. While it's not the biggest part of the story, I have to give props to Jackie for the bravery. Well, I guess your kind would call it brass balls, that it takes to go and visit Cedric Calhoun, the dapper Noss of Chicago, Primogen Calhoun. Though many discount him as nothing more than a dapper, chipper information gatherer, he's a quite dangerous kindred. She showed up at his place of business, his office, as he called it, and actually it reveals to him that she knows that he was impersonating Khaled, former Primogen Khaled. It's a very brave move, but also a very bold move. You see, without risk, there can be no reward. And in this case, she risked much to reveal this, but to show that she has no intention of revealing it. And just to let him know her own competence in this case, he locked the door and she came very close to death that night. But the way she spoke with Cedric about it, in the end, convinced him that they can work together. It's always dangerous when you reveal to a powerful kindred that they are their secrets. And in this case, I think it paid off because Cedric is planning to have her work with another Nosferatu about a project looking into, well, servants of the Niktuku of all things. So it loops back once again to this Nosferatu that she met briefly in Winneca's camp. Nosferatu that I think you're going to find has a shared thread somehow with Jackie. Because the world is funny about putting those back in your path that you thought once removed from it. Let's see, where shall we go from here? Well, Cretius came to speak with Jenny about Tasha. Good old Tasha. The kindred who, well, the kind who caught the kindred meeting with Cratius. And because Tasha interested Cratius, he asked Ginny to turn her over to him. And Ginny, who has learned a lot about the politics and also learned a lot about her own strengths, refused him, said Tasha is hers under her protection, under her tutelage, and will remain so. But this also told her that she needed to take steps to ensure Tasha's protection. And she actually did an odd thing. She gave, Tasha a choice, though it was an odd choice. It is a choice between death, because you cannot allow those to remain that know of our kind. Well, wait, you ask why if I'm telling you we can't allow? Don't worry, when we're done here, you'll remember this conversation at all anyway. And if you do, well, I'm sorry, but you will be my dinner. But in Tasha's case, she was given the choice of death for the secret she knew, or becoming one of us, becoming bound to Ginny as what we call a ghoul servitor. What's it mean to be a ghoul? Well, let's just say you do not age. You are healthier, some ways better than a normal human. But in many ways, you are tied to your infernal master, to your dominator, your regent, it's sometimes called. And in this case, she gave Tasha a choice between being ghoul or being dead. Now, you may say this is not much of a choice, but you can rest assured it is an actual choice. It is still a choice. A choice of bad choices does not mean you are forced to do something. You see, it was a choice that Ginny was never given. Choice she did not have. She was made to become a ghoul. She was made to become what she is. And at least that little choice was enough for Ginny for her own sake. Let's see. The coterie met for a while and then discovered a poacher in their domain. Now, you may say, we're not in Africa. This is not a game preserve, and this is not the Sahara or the savannah or the plains, but there is a term of poaching. Poaching refers to someone else feeding in an area that is under the control of a certain kindred. In the case of the Wicker Park group, that area that they hold domain over is theirs, and no one is to feed from there without permission from one of them. So finding someone drinking the blood of a kind, and in some ways doing it very unsubtle, you may say, plain view of a camera, was problematic. So the coterie went to deal with this poacher, and what they found was a very young kindred who had not been told what she was, had not been taught, who had, in true La Sombre style, or at least Sabbat style, had been embraced after a murder and left to fend for herself. Problem. You think about that. You are on a subway train with friends after a night of fun, a party. And then a darkness falls on the train. And the only thing you remember is all of your friends slaughtered in front of you. Carnage, blood everywhere. And then a figure that looms over you. And in pain, and you become the walking dead, unable to see the light. How would that affect you? Think of that effect, and you not knowing you are now a bloodsucker caught in the night. I'll leave you to think on that. It's funny. They took pity on her, as honestly they should have. And taking pity on her, they brought her to the sheriff. Now, the sheriff had been looking for her, but it was not the sheriff's goal to decide. He wanted Prince Jackson, but Jackie in particular, as did Lamar, made a request that she should be taught rather than destroyed. And when Damien mentioned she liked to run, well, Lamar staked her. Now, I know you've heard the funny stories. Oh, you stake a vampire and the vampire dies. I've got news for you. That does not kill us. You can think of it as a paralyzing agent, the ultimate form of anesthetic, except it is a waking anesthetic for us. You see, when we are staked, We remember everything that goes on around us. We are aware of our surroundings, unable to move, unable to affect things. Now, there are some of my kind who, given enough time, even staked, can force the stake from their body. There are some of my kind that can be staked where you think their heart is, but it does nothing. This child, this young one, was none of those. And I guess in some ways it did allow Damien to transport this young one easily. But they had second thoughts on it. And we were going to come back to that in a second. You see, it was at this discussion that Roscoe revealed to his loyal coterie that he does not agree with the Pyramid's decision to kill Sun Chi. Why Sun Chi is being called an infernalist when it's quite obvious she is not, we do not know. But Roscoe cannot, in clear conscience, be party to this. And he is planning to do something that is rare among kindred. He is going to turn his back on the core of his clan, the Pyramid, as it's called, of the Tremere, because an unjust death to him is still an unjust death, an unwarranted death. And for those who think it is an easy decision for Roscoe to have come to, I can assure you for him it was not. Turning one's back on not only the stable and source of security he's had, but his own sire, who protected him for years, is a bit difficult. And oddly enough, Lamar was quite sympathetic to it, for you see, Lamar had already killed his sire to join, well, this lovely social club, the Old Boys Network of the Camarilla. Let's see, we are moving forward a bit in time. I'm trying to think of what else we have. Yes, Nicholas found out why Isabella's sire was killed, at least basically, and who did it. And he made what turned out to be painful in some ways mistakes. He refused to reveal to Isabella the information he knew. He chose loyalty to clan over loyalty to coterie. And while many of you don't understand that, you see, in our world, normally the clan is more important, but clans betray clans all the time. The greatest strength a kindred has is to find other kindred they can trust and to be in what we call a coterie. It is not something that's normal for many kindred. Most kindred do not have those they can trust. And it is the way that a group of kindred, as young as this group is, has a chance to survive against the elders that array themselves in Chicago. You see, because in most cases, the elders are 1 against 6, or 1 and an unreliable ally against 6. Whereas a unified coterie is always 6 strong. They always have this coverage in their weakness. So not sharing information with a coterie mate is a problem. One that, to be clear, Isabella was not happy with. And you know, they say do not enter into a war of revenge with a toreador. They are perfectionists when it comes to the art of drawn out pain. As they departed the night, Roscoe noticed Victor outside of the coterie's club watching. And he called the coterie back that night, which interrupted a meeting Jackie was having with one Harry North. Now, Harry North is interesting. He is a Bruja. And though many Ventura and Bruja do not get along, this one is an interesting Bruja. He was a lot more sociable, a lot more friendly. And he runs a business that is related to Jackie's burlesque. You see, he runs high-end VIP membership-only strip clubs. But he had a request from Jackie. He wishes to have Jackie's rather skilled burlesque dancers teach his strippers some moves, some more enticements. You see, good for business on his end. And in her case, she gets a cut. And I will say Jackie was very generous with the terms of the deal she worked out. And it was smart of her to do so. You see, by being generous, she has fostered a long-term commitment and a lot more friendly negotiation platform for later. And in some ways, it also means he still owes her. And though they did not say that, her generous deal will always be in the back of his mind if she has to ask for a favor. He will always know that she could have negotiated a lot harder. And by not doing so, he should listen to at least help her out. Because she, in that particular case, gave him the advantage knowing the investment of it. But after interrupting Harry North, the coterie returned and confronted Victor and found out Victor is now the warlock of Prince Jackson. And they taunted him about that, about his titles. He is Lord Victor. And I know you've heard Lord this and Lord that, but Lord has a very special position in Clan Tremere. You see, in Clan Tremere, those who are called a lord are one step above a regent and one step below a pontifex. You see, a pontifex will manage a large region. You have the pontifex of the eastern seaboard, which covers most of the east coast. And you will have a pontifex of the Midwest and the West Coast pontifex, you see. But a lord will manage several cities. So if Victor is the Lord, he is in charge of Milwaukee, Indianapolis, Gary, Chicago, all of the region cities. And above Mr. Abraham, who is not a very good regent. You see, and as warlock, that gives him the ability to poke his nose places where he should not be. But it was during this confrontation that the coterie attempted to provoke him with his insolence. And you see, they seem to discount this individual, but his very insolence, his very almost casual disdain for things is his mask. It's what he hides behind. It is what he uses to put people off guard about the sheer competence. Even Tracy Graves, who, I will be frank, scares me in many ways. She does things she shouldn't. She does things she shouldn't be able to. Even she worries that he may come for her because he is that skilled at what he does. But the coterie goes to meet with the prince over his intrusion. And the coterie lodged a formal complaint. You see, if you want to keep peace in the city as prince, you have to do certain things. Yes, you are prince. You have say. You are ultimately the ruler. But a prince who doesn't listen to those he rules very quickly finds he has no kingdom left. And in the case of this, the coterie has lodged a formal complaint against the court warlock. Now, making it a formal complaint means the prince, it's in his best interest to act on it, to judge the transgression, to show the kindred that even those in the court are subject to the laws and traditions of what it means to be kindred. So what is the pronouncement? Well, we haven't heard yet, but I have a feeling that is going to happen soon. Very soon. The prince has had more than enough time to deliberate on what the punishment for the warlock shall be. But a punishment there shall be, because what the warlock did, though in his rights, was still rather problematic towards a group that the prince has signaled out to be an example of his city. It was also around this time, well, it's that same meeting actually, where they once again discussed Cecilia, this child that was poaching. And Lamar asked to mentor her, which was quite surprising. And in the case of this mentorship, the prince oddly enough agreed to 2 days a week. She will work with Lamar to learn what it means to be La Sombra. And the rest of the week, she will meet with whoever the prince assigns to learn what it means to be in the Camarilla. I was shocked by this. For someone who cares not about his clan, who was betrayed so many times by his own clan, this paternal instinct in Lamar was quite shocking. We shall see how this plays out. Where we go from here? We can discuss Jenny finally gathering the last bit of info to go after Flyboy. That is not the important part. That is the easy part for her. She also met a very odd being, a werewolf. And I know I told you before they exist, though you don't remember, because I like to wipe your memories. But let's say that, yes, the werewolves exist. Many of them do not like our kind. But you will find there is at least one of their tribes that are at least a little more inclined to deal with our type. They are already the outcast of their own kind. For as a creature that is built on living in the wild, the ones who choose to live in the city as much as they do, the ones who spend so much time, well, instead of the full glory of a wolf, many are more like curs in their, as they're called, coyotes, or oversized dogs in some ways. This group in the city, one of them was interested in Jenny, though we don't know exactly why he's interested. Something about her, though, he didn't feel the urge to kill her. And he made overtures in some ways of friendship, which is interesting. Because I will say, having lived as long as I have, all kindred should at least attempt to make friends with one werewolf during their time. Because you never know how handy one will be, how useful it is to have a creature that can operate in the daytime without the limitations we have, but without the blood bond that we put on those that serve us, that in some ways hamper creativity. Jackie introduced Isabella to an old friend of hers about the same time, Prince Karina Dobson. Remarkable kindred in many ways, but they asked about Braden and got important info. And I will say it was interesting to see that Jackie was willing to introduce Isabella to Prince Karina, because I don't think Isabella understood just how much of a show of companionship, or perhaps shows how much Jackie, well, likes Isabella, to introduce her to a prince of Ventru, one of the youngest in the Camarilla of DC. Personal friend, to reach out and speak with her, not as prince to kindred, but as friends. Prince Karina gave the missing bits they needed, that every time Braden has surfaced in the city, it was shortly before or shortly after Tally had been around, which suggests that Braden is actually a mentally wiped, reprogrammed spy for the Hound, someone that Tally, or that Jackie wants to kill. Good, wonderful Tally. We're coming very close to our current time. We brought up Felicity earlier. Let's finish our discussion with that. You see, Jackie met once again with her. And this time they met in Ben Galura's old place. And Jackie found out for sure that Felicity wants to be a kindred. She wants justice and revenge for what was done to her family. And though she can't do the one who did it to her family, she can retain her youth and actually be a source of justice and a source of moderation, and be, in some ways, one that prevents that from happening in the future. And I know you do not understand many of our clans, but there is one of our clans, one of our bloodlines, that is focused on justice, fairness, and righting the wrongs that our kind inflict on society. We call them the Banu Akim. They are mediators and judges among our kind. And Jackie realized that this person, this former Second Inquisition agent, would be very good, very useful to the Banu Akim as a judge, to ensure these kind of horrible acts do not happen again. And so she made a deal that in return for all the information on the Second Inquisition's operations in Chicago, Jackie would take Felicity to see Pater Argent-Shaw, who is of Jackie's cult of Mithras, who oddly enough also believes in justice and fairness. Somewhat. But would bring her to him so that he could embrace her. You see, that is a smooth move on Jackie's part because it A, gets the Second Inquisition agent out of Chicago, gets him embraced by somebody other than her, and gets her embraced by somebody who not only runs a cult with extensive contacts, but also embraced by somebody who runs a security company that does computer and internet security and has access to resources that can make it very easy to wipe her from existence. Now, I happen to know that this deal Jackie worked is going to deal tremendous damage to the Second Inquisition's operations in Chicago, and I would be joking if I didn't say that it makes me breathe, if I breathed any, a bit easier to know that they're going to be on a back foot. And I'm sure Arjun can ensure she does not betray anything. It was the same night that Jackie was finally putting a close to the Felicity thing that the rest of the coterie decided to take out Flyboy, the thin blood pilot who was working for the Second Inquisition that reported to Felicity and also flew in anyone for a price. They had a workable plan to attack him midway between a bar that he frequented. And during this attack, they found out that thin bloods have powers similar sometimes to what Lamar's clan can do, though not nearly as powerful. You see, Noah injured Emilio in the fight and then cast about a deep mist to hide himself in. And it would have worked if not for Lamar showing him what true power is as he threw forth his shroud of entropy of death. And this particular poor thin blood who, to be fair, I wouldn't even consider really human, or kindred at least, somewhere in between, half of both. Little better than a ghoul. In the end, he paid the price and was destroyed. But it's also here that because of Nicholas's actions, Isabella felt Noah should have suffered. Flyboy should have been hurt more. And that Toreador vengeance snuck out again. She took out her fury on Nicholas, who ended Flyboy's life so quickly. And though she did not injure Nicholas, she got her point across with several gunshots in his direction, where she was pointedly showing that she was deliberately missing. But the sentiment was quite clear. Let's see. What shall we talk about next? Let's go back to Roscoe and his friend Samantha real quick. You see, Reese, who we haven't discussed tonight, quit working for Jackie. And this imitator, this poser of Jackie, opened up a burlesque cabaret called the Big O. Now, at Jackie's Le Petit Mort, if you understand what that means, that is the little death. That is also an allegory, a reference to an orgasm. So for Reese to make a club called the Big O, it was not only crass and lewd, it was a direct slap in the face to Jackie, especially considering it was to do the same venue that Jackie does. But Jackie had an idea, killed two birds with one stone. Let's have Roscoe go there, be seen making eyes at Reese, so that Samantha will find out his jealous redhead mage. I would call her girlfriend, but I'm not quite sure that's an accurate statement. And perhaps the two would solve each other's problems. So Roscoe did go out to the Big O and flirted a bit in the presence of Allison, who turns out to be, well, we've all seen, Samantha's friend. Allison is also tied to Balthazar somehow. But Allison did what was predicted and immediately went to tell Samantha about Roscoe being there. And that'll come up shortly. This was the same night that Jackie took Nicholas to Blue Velvet to discuss opening a haven. Now, this is an interesting part here. You see, though you're coteries, that doesn't mean favor for a favor is not a thing. And in Jackie's case, Jackie would arrange a meeting between the Malkavian Primogen Bronwyn and Nicholas so he can discuss a haven inside Malkavian territory. But in return, Jackie wanted Nicholas to ask his sister to scout the place because Jackie is curious about this wine tasting. And while Nicholas managed to get a favorable deal done, Izzy found the basement of Bronwyn's place not only has cages, which tells you she's been harboring people. These cages have thick chains, very thick chains. Now, here's the thing about these thick chains. If you are keeping humans hostage, do you need chains? If you have them in a cell and you are kindred and you are Malkavian would dominate, you have nothing to fear from a human. You can make them as docile as you need. You do not need to chain them. But what kind of prey would you have to have a big chain on? Well, if the chains were not made of silver, many of the werewolves will break free of them and your cell. But if you were keeping, say, kindred in a cell, you would want not only chains, but the bars. The chains so that you could move in and open the cells and do things to the kindred without them attacking you. So indirectly, though it took Jackie a few nights to think through everything that she learned from Izzy, she realized the only purpose of these chains would be, and these cells would be to keep kindred hostage. And why would one kindred keep another hostage? Well, we have this thing in our society called the circulatory system. And yes, I know that it comes from your kind, from the blood in your veins. But in our kind, it means, well, blood as well. It is a network, a shipping network of places and people and sources for blood. You see, many of our kind, as they get older, we develop tastes of certain kind of blood. And I don't mean a negative versus a positive. I mean, your blood has a flavor, your emotions, your feelings is all in your blood. And we get a taste for it, things we like. And it can be difficult to find it, but some kindred have specialized in locating this kind of blood. And if that is what Bronwyn is doing, that is information Jackie has been looking for a while. Let's see. We're almost up to current times. I know the coterie had a nice meeting. We're together as a group, which is important. They do their best work together as a group. They came to realize Braden Sire, they really worked out Braden Sire made Izzy sick. Izzy made that clear. They realized that Tally is involved with the information Jackie had given and everything they pieced together. They realized that Braden has to be a spy of some kind. And it raises the question of, is that spy in some way linked to Alan Sovereign, the Sinshaw? Because Braden is staying in Alan Sovereign's places. And then we come to, as they were leaving, good old Lamar, his buddy Nick, found Capone. And the coterie decided it is time for Capone to end. Capone of Clan Ventru, or as Jackie puts it, one who should never have been. So the coterie planned an assault on a penthouse of a building that Capone would be in one night. They had one night close to dawn to do it. And the coterie, along with Etienne and Peter and Nick, Tony, and his other child, member of his brood, Rocky, assaulted this. Now, Rocky is an interesting individual. It seems many of this coterie liked him, enjoyed him. He is a helicopter pilot who doesn't talk much except when he's flying his helicopter. And when he's flying his helicopter, he is sarcastic, chatty, subtle in his lewdness. And they assaulted Capone's place. What they did not know going into it is there is another kindred in the tower. Very old kindred, a very strange kindred, known as the Madam. Now this Madam is odd. She, even I do not know what clan she is, what bloodline. She is a collector of the dead, of the lost, of the forgotten, and the rare. And entering her tower in and of itself was not a problem. But Nicholas made an offhand comment that I don't think to him he meant as a request, but she took it as one. You see, he said help or wait. And she opted to help with the Capone hit. And now he owes her. And while Jackie has never met the Madam, she knows of her. Roscoe has never met the Madam. He knows of her. Nicholas, in some ways, may have made a deal with the devil. Someone who collects spirits, collects the lost and the forgotten. Wanting to meet with somebody who wears a fetter of the dead around her neck, or his neck, cannot be a good thing. And you're wondering, what is the ultimate fate of Capone? Well, that's easy. I've got an ultimate fate for you. You see, they beat him. And in the end, Jackie drank his soul. Now, I know you've heard me say about drinking blood. Drinking of a soul is different. Everything that was Al Capone, everything that was his curse, his beast, what he was to be kindred, she drank. You wonder, how do you drink a soul? Well, because of our state and what we are, what she really drank was his beast. She took his beast into her, took the power of that beast, that dark side. And while she gained power from it, a little part of him will always live on in her. He will always be, her blood is now, has some of his. You wonder about, can one survive that? Well, our kind has been said to be dead many times. You'll hear it often. Capone was killed, Loden was killed, Vitale was killed. They all come back. Mithras was killed. They all come back. What you do not hear is those who are diablerized come back. You see, if they are diablerized, only in a rare case, well, they never come back. Once in a while, they manage to steal the body of the one who tried to drink them. But that is rare, and only when the most powerful of us are drank. In the case of Capone, he was nowhere near a match for Jackie's iron will and Jackie's control. And the central tenet of her cult is that power should not be wasted. Power should always be returned to the cult or be given to the church, to Mithras. And in this case, by drinking Capone, she added his power, at least some of it, to her own cult, to Mithras. Which actually makes Jackie the second of the coterie members to commit diablerie. We have had two, which is quite interesting. She is not nearly as cold as Lamar is after his diablerie. But I am curious what form Al Capone's voice will take in her head. You see, poor Lamar is now stuck with a Bible-thumping televangelist in his head. And Jackie is going to be stuck with Capone, which makes it interesting. And now we come to a brief little bit. You see, this is the final part. You wonder what happened with Decker, why after everything he pulled, he did not continue to kidnap people. Well, that's pretty simple, actually. In the case of Decker, he was visited by Tracy Graves and a mage named Franklin. And the two of them, well, put the fear of unlife into Prince Decker. You see, you would be amazed at how quickly you decide to stop fucking around because you don't want to find out a second time what it feels like to have all your skin and insides out. When the skin is on the inside and your muscle and ligaments are all outside your body, and your eyes have turned to dust, it is a horrifying thing for our kind. And after many threats by these two individuals, Decker was taught, well, the folly of his ways. And as a parting gift was the greatest of all. You see, this Mage Franklin turned the ballpark in Milwaukee, where Mark Decker liked to make his haven, into a cairn. What is a cairn? It is a sacred node of werewolves. It is a sacred node for the war spirits in particular, where werewolves will not only not be happy a kindred is residing, but also go, well, for battle. I'm sure Decker is not going to be staying there much longer. So, that is my major parts of it. Of course, now that I've gone over some things that have happened in the past few months, before we end this and I wipe your memories, I do ask if you have any questions. I do allow for questions here. You can ask me. I'm going to wipe your memory anyway, so you might as well ask if you wish to know, and it is in my power to share it. I will try to share. It is up to you. And yes, that Tracy Graves in some ways scares me. Though she is so much younger than me, she, as I said, does things she shouldn't, has power she shouldn't. I will not tangle with her. Not willingly. Even marked with the red moon, the red crescent that I have now, I would not tangle with her. Do we have questions? I don't know if you have any. Let's see, I can talk briefly about what's to come while you decide if you have anything you wish to ask me. What is to come? Let's see, as we are about to be back where we left off, Samantha had blown up a building. It seems the plan that Jackie had with the Big O worked. Samantha blew up the Big O. I suspect Reese is now dead. Luke's, what we call a touchstone, is gone. But the backlash from this for someone of Samantha's power of a mage, the last I looked in, she had stopped in to see Roscoe, who was gravely wounded and almost killed fighting Capone, as she came in horribly injured and damaged from what they call paradox, which is a correction in reality, correcting what she had done, what changes she made, because reality wants to maintain its own sense of balance, and her exploding in a club, let's just say, injured hers in ways that will take time to heal. Someone wishes to ask about bananas in the coterie's future. Well, I'm sure there'll be banana peels this season. There'll be slip-ups and mistakes. Things have been going quite well for the coterie. Will they continue this high point? Will they continue their policy of winning? Or will it be some setbacks? We're going to have to see. But what will happen with Samantha is an interesting question I want you to think about, because she may be a stalker for Roscoe, but in some ways she does care, and she's in some ways useful. She is injured in this way. What will Roscoe do? He is not one to turn his back on a woman in need who is injured. How is he going to react, even though she did blow up a club with this injuries from paradoxes? He is himself injured. What will the two of them be doing? Let's see. What is her state? She is extremely injured. You see, there's various forms of paradox. Some are not so bad, but in her case, it manifested as physical harm to her body. It will take quite some time to heal this, because the kind of wounds she suffered are not ones the body naturally deals with, and generally you don't want to attempt to use the power of the magic to heal it, because paradox is a punishment for breaking reality, and trying to further break reality to get rid of the punishment, invokes further punishment. Who is after this coterie is an interesting question. Well, Luke is going to be quite mad his touchstone got blown up, and though he can't blame it on anyone in particular, he has no proof or any way to blame it on the coterie, he is not going to be happy. Mark Decker will always hold a grudge. You still have Loden out there. You have Cratius. Keisha is a problem, especially given honor. Victor is a major problem. Big problem if he has been sent here. Has Lord Victor of House Tremere. He has already alluded that Abraham is going to not be regent long, but Sun Shi must be destroyed first. And since Roscoe is turning his back on the pyramid, and his own sire is en route to Chicago, there is likely to be a war among the Tremere. And Roscoe will be forced to take a side. And as I mentioned earlier, being in a coterie is important. It is your only protection sometimes, which means the coterie will be forced to take a side. Who is going to be the coterie going to go after next is an interesting question to ask. Keisha is a possibility, but I do not know if Jackie still plans to kill her. Loden is still a problem that should be dealt with. The Natuku going after Nosferatu is a problem, though if none of these kindred have, none of the coterie are Nosferatu, it is still a problem. These individuals are not safe to be around. Lamar still has the shepherds of Urshugi to deal with. Ginny has come to realize there's a Bahari presence she has to deal with. The cult of Mithras has many enemies. Who will they go after next is an interesting question. Oh, I can't answer it because I am not one who sees the future. All I see is the present. I read the pattern. As for earn the right, you see, Chicago is an odd part about progeny. If you are a clan in good standing, you are allowed to create children. So, of course, Clan Ventru runs the city. They are allowed to create children. Clan Toreador can create children. Clan Tremere cannot. Clan Gangrel cannot. Oddly enough, Clan Bruja can, mainly because of Cratius and Damien. But it leads the question of which of the coterie is going to sire next. And that is an interesting concept. You see, for Roscoe may not be able to. Perhaps he might be able to, though, if he asks the prince. You see, Roscoe is one of the few Tremere allowed in Elysia. What would happen if Roscoe asked for the right of progeny from the prince? Guess we won't know unless he does. The real question is there anyone he would sire? Anyone he would embrace? That is the question. Is there any of these threads out there that the coterie is going that I want them to tug and unravel? I am curious in some ways to see what happens with Roscoe and Samantha after this explosion. Because I will point out one thing, that yes, she blew up a building, but is it all her fault? She was antagonized. Who is really to blame for what Samantha did? Well, Samantha in some ways, yes. But are there others to blame for it? Are there others that you could say contributed it and encouraged it? And in some ways, many of the acts she has done, are there some who have goaded her into it? There's an interesting question. And I do not mean Jackie's action. Jackie saw a tool to be used and used it. That is different from if individuals are deliberately pushing her to do certain things, which is an interesting question indeed on that one. Other things. I am quite interested in this Nosferatu that is curious about Jackie. Who is he? I still have not penetrated who he actually is yet. I have devoted some of my attention to it. I want to know who he is. So we will see how that one goes. I am curious what Jenny will do now when it comes to, well, Capone is gone. And the Primogenic clan Ventrue owe her. What will Jenny use this for? Is this Jenny's springboard to push herself ahead? And we still don't know what Fiorenza wanted from her, why she's here in Chicago fully. What will Lamar do about the shepherds? Nicholas has a problem with the Giovanni assassins showing up at his haven. And a madam. And Isabella has many threads to go down when it comes to Braden, his link to her sire, and what events transposed, and how that all comes back. And an interesting thought, because Emilio was in New York, and Emilio has said some things that he has told her. But does Emilio have any secrets? Because he did serve Vivian before he served Isabella. And though he may be bound to Isabella now, is there something locked in his head that he cannot share? It's an interesting concept. Any other questions before I wipe your memory? For most of you and for the unlucky few I feed on, because this is tiring and thirsty work I'm doing here tonight. If you're curious about what I meant by another timeline, you see, most of you here in Chicago think this is the only time you've met me. But from my point of view, I have seen you once before in the year 1999. Though it's not our 1999, it is a 1999 of possibility. Why do you say it was a possibility? Well, I'm not going to go in details. If you wish to have the details of that, well, if you can remember from 1999, we will probably talk Tuesday. And we will discuss the past. So, what is coming up other than that I've revealed? Oh, I know Jackie has plans to move forward to eventually be Prince of Milwaukee. She has named half of her court already. The coterie has killed Capone. But because no blood hunt was officially called, there is a bit of a gray area here with Capone. And I predict, this is not my premonitions because I do not do them. This is me guessing based on events. That one of the first things you are going to hear from me about is them meeting with the prince to deal with this gray area. And from there, where will it go? Well, possibilities are endless. Hopefully we will find out about Samantha, the change over Jackie after she ate Capone. Whether Jackie feels she's due anything for being the one who made sure Capone does not come back. Because there is an interesting story regarding it, you see. One of the conditions of Prince Jackson taking his throne as prince was that Capone must die. Jackson has been prince for a while now. Capone, thought dead, has lived for quite a while, which means the conditions for Jackson's rulership were not met officially until Jackie diablerized him to ensure he stayed dead. And it was a diablerie that the whole coterie was involved in that needed to be there to do as a group. How bold is this coterie? Risk always gives you reward. The bigger the risk, the better the reward. Sometimes the better the pain. What will they risk if they seek a reward? Will they risk asking for a reward from the prince? We'll find out. So I ask one last time if anyone wishes me to spoil some things that are coming. Otherwise, I will change my mask to, well, one you don't see me use normally. I will change over to a man who calls himself Shanky. I do enjoy this, and I have missed everybody, of course. I have missed being here every week to tell you what's going on. Unfortunately, I've been busy, but perhaps I'll have a chance to meet with you more often. Perhaps my duties of the Red Crescent won't take up as much time anymore. And I know many of you do not understand what the Red Crescent means, but I'm sure somebody knows and may relay what it meant to have a red crescent on my hand when you met last time with me. And now I'm going to discuss and bring forth Shanky. You know, I hate that guy. That Twitch guy's a bitch. He really irritates me. You know? I don't know if he's eaten anybody yet. He don't tell me shit. You know, I was hoping he'd eat more people. I hate this mask shit he does with me, though. It drives me nuts. But I just want to let everybody know, of course, and since I'm Shanky and not Twitch right this second, please join us on this Discord. I want you to, we cast all of our shows directly from the Discord. The people you see here in Windy City are guest players. The people you see in our one-shots, the people you see in Demon the Fallen, they were all cast off our Discord. We also have, I believe we have one casting call still open, a game run by Ravnos Archon here on our channel for Dune. The casting call is still open for that. He has finally closed his casting call for Kids on Bikes, and he has his cast, but he has a casting call open for Dune. So if you want to play Dune, I'm hoping I'm going to be in it. I'm hoping Mama McStabber will be in it. So if you want a chance to play for sure with Ravnos Archon and possibly with Relin or I, please pop over to the Discord. Join, look in the casting couch. That is where we post up our casting calls. And I will say some casting calls have full audition processes, like Windy City did and Demon did. Some do not. Ravnos Archon picks his audition process and his casting process, and he doesn't normally do full auditions like we do. He just talks with people and picks people he feels would be good to have on stream and to play games with, which is awesome. We also cast one-shots. We do a weekly Zoom hangout where Mama McStabber and I and members of anyone on the Discord can hang out in Zoom. We do it on a Friday night or a Saturday night where we alternate weeks. And you can actually hang out with us and chat in Zoom. The topics we cover is pretty much everything under the sun. And it's just a good chance to meet people. We're just regular people and we just like to hang out and talk. We do a non-streamed community game every couple months called Blood on the Clock Tower, which is like an ultimate style werewolf game. At some point, we're going to do a non-streamed community murder mystery party over Zoom, which is, you know, somebody got killed and we got to figure out which one of us did it. We streamed one once, but we're going to do a non-streamed one because we can get a lot more people involved by doing that. That'll probably be our next event rather than Blood on the Clock Tower next time. So if you're on our Discord, you can come play with us when we do stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. Of course, you want to catch our back episodes because the summaries are great, but sometimes you want to see everything right over here on our YouTube. Check out our YouTube. It's got all the back episodes. It's got all of our previous Windy Cities, DC by Night, our Werewolf one-shot, our Werewolf Chronicle, which is just finished season 2, our Mage Chronicle, which finished season 3 not long ago, and of course, our newly started Demon the Fallen Chronicle. You can catch all of that. If you want to catch out some great content creators, one of them some of them you've actually seen around here. In particular, Ravnos Archon, who played Franklin in the intermissions, the Mage, he is actually right over there. You can pop in and see him on his channel, on Ravnos Archon's channel. You can catch Mischievous Red, who plays Isabella on our channel. You can catch the RPG table. That is the one who played Tracy Graves in the intermissions, the amazing Junie Von Esch, who we all love, who streams Vampire on Saturdays. So if you like vampires, you should go check her out. And even the Ivy Raven, who plays Jenny, she streams non-TTRPG stuff. So if you want to see some WoW, some Fortnite, some Destiny 2, you should go over to her channel, give her a follow, check her out, and watch her play some other games, of course. If you want to support the studio, you can always subscribe here on Twitch. Give us a follow on Twitch. Subscribe on YouTube. If you want to give some money to the studio, of course, that's what subscriptions on Twitch are for, or you can pop to our KoFi. KoFi is where we do, you can give to the studio without Twitch taking half. Of course, bits and donations go to the players, not to the stream. But since I am the sole player in today's episode, any bits and donations actually go to Shanky and not to anyone else. Which means really it goes to Mama McStabber because my money is her money. And if anyone doesn't understand that, then obviously they're not thinking it through. So, bits, donations, they go to the studio today only. You want to catch our merch? We've got Windy City merch. You can get some cool stuff like the posters you see behind me during a regular stream. That's in our merch store. You can buy posters just like that were made by the amazing Combustion Girl, and Relin has done some updates to the new ones. You can buy those posters there. You can buy a lot of Windy City stuff like Wish a Motherfucker Would, Camp Counselor t-shirts. Those, you have to be signed into Zazzle to get them. So you should check those out, of course. And I think I covered all the main parts other than the schedule. So let's go with the schedule. We've got an interesting week. There's not a lot of streams this week, but get ready for a big one. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Demon the Fallen, Demon the Road to Hell, Season 1, Episode 2, the very first live full table episode with a special event happening during it. At the end of Tuesday's stream of Demon, we will be giving away one hardcover copy of Demon the Fallen, which is one that we've had printed from DriveThruRPG. So if you watch the stream on Tuesday, watch it till the end. I will open up a giveaway and you can get a chance to get a free Demon the Fallen hardcover copy. So if you want to get a copy of the book that you're going to be watching us play, you want to watch the stream. It's your chance to get Demon the Fallen. And let me tell you, if you didn't watch last week's episode, pop over to YouTube, watch it. We have content warnings between each scene because it's pretty heavy, but it shows you how each of these demons got a body. And most importantly, it shows you who these demons are before we start the chronicle. And I know it is overly emotional and it is tough for some people. Be aware, even if you do not watch the demon possession scenes, that's fine. It is kind of rough to watch for some people. The main chronicle will not be as dark as those scenes were. By their nature, possession of a body is a very emotionally dark situation. So if you're looking to see how dark our demon stream is, it's going to be darker than Windy City, but not holy fuck, I'm going to tear your heart out and eat it like Wraith was. So there's that. And in the rest of this week, we don't have another stream until Sunday. And it's Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We are back for Windy City After Dark, Season 7, Episode 1. We are back with the start of the season, people. So you ready for Season 7? I am. We had a break. The cast is chomping at the bit to get back to the story. And we're going to need to do the story. So be ready for all this shit. Yeah, that's all the schedule for this week. Now, I do want to say right now, of course, as always, when we end this, please, everybody, please take your mental health seriously. We joke, we have fun, we laugh a bit, but mental health is very, very important. Mental health is health, and it's okay to not be okay. And please reach out to friends, family, and loved ones around you. Check in on people. Make sure they're okay, because a lot of us aren't. And sometimes a friendly voice is all it takes to be a lifeline to somebody who desperately needs one. And as somebody who suffers from mental health issues, if you are like me and you do this, please don't be afraid to reach out to those around you. But if you feel you can't, because I understand you may not feel you can, right now in chat, there's a list of names and numbers you can call or text 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can get somebody to talk to you to be that lifeline you need. There's nothing wrong with doing this. It is very important to take your mental health seriously, because that's the only way that we can all share everything together. So please take this mental health. And if you are not in the U.S., because I know we have non-U.S. viewers, right now in the same chat, there's a link that you can plug in and you can get a list of the help lines and crisis lines and websites in your country. And there's 140 plus countries in that list. So please, please take your mental health seriously. And since Mama McStabber is not here, I will point out, please get your COVID shots. As somebody who has COPD, I do not want COVID. I do not want you giving me COVID because I do not wish to die, please. And fuck Putin. He's still not out of Ukraine, so I'm not done saying fuck him. And we said fuck him with an elephant. So this time I think I want to fuck him with a tractor trailer, the whole tractor trailer. Fuck Putin. But do not take it out on Russian people or the Russian businesses in your community. They do not deserve it. And everyone, Mama McStabber is not here, but I'm going to say this. Let me tell you, reproductive rights are human fucking rights. Okay. It is the shit going on overturning Roe v. Wade and our federal government trying to tell people and women what they can do with their fucking bodies is fucking bullshit. It is not your body. Stay the fuck out of it. Stay the fuck out of saying what people can do with it. And let me tell you, if you're claiming your forced birth or if you're claiming you're pro-life, but you are against making sure that every child gets free neonatal care, every child gets free preschool and free education, and you're against every child making sure they have a fucking nutritious and healthy meal, you are not fucking pro-life. You are forced fucking birth. And there's a fucking difference. And yes, I'm swearing a lot because it means a lot. And I'm just letting you know this. This is bullshit. And if you are claiming you're pro-life, but you're also fine with AR-15s being bought to shoot up schools, fuck you. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I believe in a well-regulated portion of it. And this has got to fucking stop. So if you don't like me preaching, it's my channel. I'll preach if I want to. I have that right. So now that I'm going to get off my soapbox, just remember, please vote out the dickheads that think they can tell a woman what to do with their body. Because even if you're not a woman, how would you like the government telling you, you have to get a vasectomy? You don't want the government telling you to do it. Think about the shoe on the other foot. Don't go down the path. So I do thank everyone for coming. And I do thank all the viewers and the fans of Windy City and the players and everyone in our community that has made Windy City and this channel what it is. I am glad and happy to have you every day. So I thank you all for coming. And I will hopefully see you Tuesday. Good night, everybody.